Today in this video, we will be talking about some simple queries that we can do in our PG admin or in our that is PostgreSQL server. The queries will be very similar to how it is with other relational database systems like MySQL or MS SQL and so on. Before I proceed, I would just explain you a slight correction that I have done in the model structure. Is that earlier I had this sales table, right, where I had pointed it to a particular product is being sold at a day, on a particular day at a particular price and to a certain customer, and there was a staff who registered this sale. Now, since you own a shop and you have customers coming in, one customer can buy multiple products instead of buying just one single product. So, in that case, this does not hold true. Like, if say one customer comes and he purchases three items, so do I write all the three item IDs here or do I write three rows here? That is a bigger question that comes into play. And also, what is the price of each ID, each product? Like, say you have bought belts and hats and say pens, and for belts you have the customer has taken 15% discount. For hats he has taken 10% off, and for pens he has taken 20% off. So that particular detail of each product and the discount that has been given against that particular product is not captured in this table. So because of that reason, I have dropped this and I made the slight change where this table, that the sales table, has only a sale ID and the customer who has purchased it and the cashier who has registered the sale. And there is information which talks about the price at which it was sold and the total discount that has been given to the customer and on what date the sale was made. Now, the information about the items that were sold in each sale were then listed here in another table where I have got an item ID. Then I pointed out to the sale ID saying that okay, this many items that were purchased belong to this one particular sale ID. And then that sale ID had its own customer ID and cashier ID. So that way I can identify that on for any given sale, what are the items that were purchased by this customer. Then and then all those items I can point them out to the products table, which are the items that have been sold and at what price each item was sold, and the difference between the price that is listed here and here would be the discount that I have given. So this is the change that I have made, and I have uploaded accordingly the files and created the tables in my PG admin. So let us view our PG admin. Here, if you see, there's this tables, and I've created all of them. So I have the sales table here. This is the old one, so I've just kept it as old. I can simply drop it also, but I've just kept it as such. Um, then for each sale, I have got sales item, and everything is mapped accordingly. Now we'll go straight away to our fundamental concepts, our fundamental queries that we can write. So what before we write the queries, we would talk about the different types of queries or the different types of operations that you can do within a table. So we have already seen that we can create a table, right? And we can remove a table. Uh, we can that are view columns that are there in a table. We can do all these. So we have finished only the create part. Apart from that, within a table, this all the above three queries were about how to create, remove, and drop a table, right? Or update a table and so on. But how to see the data within a table? So those operations typically fall into four categories. One is where I create data, that is, I insert a row in the table, or I read a data, like like in a table there are like multiple rows. Then I have to see what data is in what row. Those are the read operations. Then if something is wrong, then I can update the data in a particular cell or in a set of cells that match my requirement, or I can delete any data that is there. Delete any data that is there. Uh, like say there's a row which has incorrect data, I just want to delete the entire row altogether. In that case, I can delete. Now you must have heard of this acronym CRUD, that is create for create, C for create, R for read, U for update, D for delete. So this is exactly what we do in a CRUD operation. Now, uh, we will first of all cover these CRUD operations, queries against these CRUD operations, and we'll limit to basic queries now. Advanced queries we'll cover in a later video, and we'll try to cover this part also. Okay. Now, for a create operation, of these, if you look at it, you can just create one entry, right? It's a very simple operation, and the query is also very simple. So let's do one thing here. So let's see what is there in our customers table. um, I go to all rows, and right now, if you see, I have one entry called John Doe, and this is the phone number. Now I want to create another entry which is John D, say. How do I do that? The query is pretty simple. Okay. So what I do here is I say insert into. So the query, I'll just explain the query first. It would be insert into the table name that you have, table name, and then you say the column, the field names. Okay. Column name one, column name two, and so on. You can also call it field names. So typically in the world of data, we don't call them columns, we call them field. So field one name, field two name, and say I'll just do one more, that is field three name. So there are three fields, and each I have to name them here. Okay. And then I say that these are the values that you would be putting against each. So value 1, value 2, value 2, and value 3. So what SQL would understand is that it will first of all identify this table, and then it will say in this table, whatever against this field name, against this field, I have to put this value. Against this field, I have to put the second value. Against the third field, I have to put the third value. So remember that this sequence has to follow this sequence. And the couple more things that you need to know is that table name, field names should be the exact match as it is there here. If there is an error in the spellings, then you would face it will not execute. Second thing is that this field name and values, you need to be careful here that this is in the same order. Value 2 cannot be assigned to field 1 name because field 1 is the first one here. So value 1 would be assigned. Similarly, value field 2 will be assigned value 2, and field 3 would be assigned value 3. Third thing that you need to take care of is that the type of data that field 1 can store. If field 1 can store data which is of the type integer, then you cannot pass a word here or a string here. You have to pass the data that is of the same exact same type. Now let's see it in an example. Let me insert a record into the customers table. Okay. So what I would write is insert into customers table. So here I would put double quotes. When you use double quotes, the system would understand what is there here. Okay, when you put single quotes instead of double quotes, had I put single quotes, it would mean that it's a string that I'm passing as an argument. Okay, so here under double quotes, I would say customers table, customers. Okay, remember the spelling should be exactly matching, including cases. Some places the cases don't matter, but it is always a good practice that you ensure that the cases match. Okay, then I'll say field names. First field is customer ID, customer underscore ID, underscore ID. Second field name is customer name, customer name. Third field is email ID, email ID. and fourth is phone number. Phone number. Then I put values, which should be now, as I mentioned earlier, that you have to ensure that the type stays the same. So you can do here like click on it, right click on properties, and then you see the type integer. Okay. Now, so this since this customer ID is an integer, I'll put one here. Customer name is a string. I know it, so I'll just show it once again to you. See here, it is character varying, which means that it's a string. So I can give it a name, say John D. Now, as I mentioned earlier, that since this is a string, I have to define it within single quotes. Then comes email ID. Again, email ID is a string. So I'll say John D @someemail.com, and then I give it a phone number. Phone number again is an integer. So I'll just randomly type in something here. Since it is an integer, I don't have to put it under double quotes. This is fine. One, now the query looks very good. We can simply run it and it will insert. But in this case, it will not. I'll explain you why. But before that, let me just run it and see. If I run it, see it's saying key error, that key error one, key customer ID one already exists. What does that mean? I know that it's a primary key. That means it is unique. It cannot repeat. So let's see what values are already there against customer ID. I had already done that view. I had already clicked on the table and created view, added data and all, and that is the output. So here you see that customer ID one already exists. So now I cannot pass the ID as one. Instead, what I will do is I'll pass another ID which is again unique. So I'll say ID2 is unique. And now let me run it. I run it, query has returned successfully. Now let me check it out again. All rows. And here you see second email has entered. So that covers how to insert a record. It is This is a very simple query and it stays as such always. Remember this thing, the things that you need to consider here is that you have to consider double quotes, double quotes, and single quotes. Second thing is that you need to ensure that field names are in the same order as values. Third thing is values should be in the exact same format as format or type as the field is defined. And the fourth thing is in case of primary keys or fields having unique value constraints, pass a value that is not there in the table earlier. These are the four things that you need to check while inserting a record. So the next query that we would be looking at would be read. You see, we can read the details by right clicking on the column name on the table name and selecting view or edit data and see all rows. This is one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is that we write a query. In that case, how do we write? What we write is that we write a select query. So the first word tells the type of query. In this case, it was insert. In this case, it is select. Select. So what all columns do I need to select? So I can select field 1, field 2, or field 3, and so on. I have to write the column names. So here I'll write uh, field names separated by a comma. Okay, so I have to select customer ID, customer name, and all these things. Then from which table? From, then I give table name. Table name. So I'll say that select customer ID and customer name from customers. Then there will be another ending part which is called where. So where you have to write the conditions. I'll talk about this a bit later. But where is not necessary. If you want to select all the data, then this much is fine. Let me run this first to give you an example. Let me see. Select customer name. Okay, customer name from table name, that is customers. Okay, and let me run it. So it says that there's an error here. Remember that double quote thing that I had mentioned earlier? Since it is a card table name, I have to put it within double quotes and then I'll run it. Now you see the two names have come. So only this column detail has come. Now if I want customer ID also, I'll just write that field name also here. Customer underscore ID and comma separated by a comma, right? Field name separated by a comma. Now let me see here. I select this and then I run it. See, customer ID and customer name came. One thing that I have not mentioned till now about this query window is if I run, then it will execute each line one by one by one. If I and then it will discard this and then run this one, discard this and then run this one. Second thing is that if I want to run a particular line in all these things, I can simply select this one line and then execute it. It will work. In this case, let me just add another guy here, John Da, and uh, and I just change the number here and give it a third primary key, third value. Then I select this one record, one line, and then I run play. Query is executed. Now if I select this query and I run, it will give the third names. So this is how the query window works. Now if I don't do anything and I simply execute it, what will happen? My the query window will accept this entire thing as one single query. If there are like multiple queries, then I have to put a query end. Like in a sentence, you put a full stop in the end. So in a query, we have to end the query. So here we cannot end the query with a full stop. Instead, we can end the query with a semicolon. So here again, I'll end this query with a semicolon, this query with a semicolon, and this one the semicolon. Now these things is like for our understanding, that's why I kept it this way. So I'll just comment them. This is not a query and this is not a query. Okay. Now let me run this. If I run it, first thing, see, it captured this one. It hit this query and it says that unique key already exists. 3 already exists. So what I'll do, I'll insert one more record, that is 4, and I call it John Doe. Give me a minute. John Doe, and I'll just change the name. Okay. Now let me run the entire thing. Without selecting anything, I'll just execute the query window. What happens? First, it inserted this one, then cleared out the output, and then it ran this one, this query, and it showed. So if you see, John Doe, John D, John Da, and John Do, all of them showed up. So we have covered this part, that is field names separated by commas, and then from which table we want to check it. Now, next thing that I want to check is that next part would be the conditions. What if I want to find out the details of John Da? Okay. Uh, so in that case, what I'll do is I'll say let where customer name uh, customer name equals to John Da. In this case, if you see, it will, and I run this, I select this row and I run it, and it says where customer name is equal to John Da. So we have to put it under double quotes. Now let's see. Now let me run it. And so here says where customer. Okay, so here you see that the spelling is wrong. So customer name is equal to John Da. customer underscore name. Now let me check it out. So here you see customer name and customer ID came in. Second thing that, okay, so now you say that, okay, do I have to write all the field names if there are like 100 fields or 100 columns in one table? Do I have to write all the names for them to see, for me to see that? No, you don't need to. What you can do instead is you can write select star, and it will, star means pick all the names. So I'd say select star from customers, customers, where customer underscore name equals to, and then it's always a good practice to end a query with a semicolon. Even if you don't end it, it doesn't matter, but it's always a good practice that you end it. Now, if I run it, see, customer ID, customer name, email ID, and phone number, all of it came. If I don't pass the where condition, then it will show me the results of everything, of all the rows. So let me see, select star from customers, and I don't have a where condition. I run it, all of them came in. Okay, this becomes that easy. Now, another thing that I can say is that I want to find a customer whose phone number includes this 654 645 654. So let me copy this, and I say that select star from customers. I'll write it again. Select star from customers where customer underscore ID equals to, not customer ID, phone number. Phone underscore number. In this case, it will show only the first result. But I want to see the entire this result also, right? 65645654. This one has, okay, none of them has 6456. But I know that 654 is included in these two, right? How do I find that? So basically, my question here is that give me all the phone numbers where the phone number has 654 in it. How do I do it? In that case, we write the query something like this: from customers, uh, customers where phone underscore number is like, and then I put quotes and then say double percentage sign and then put it here. What does this mean? What it will do is it will first of all pick the customers table, and one by one it will check wherever phone number contains 654. So here this guy does not contain 654, this guy does, and this one does. So the customer IDs 2, 3, and 4 will come up. I'll explain the query again, but before that, let me run it. So it's saying where this is like, sorry, where first for, and is not required, only like. Okay, so then I search it. So in this case, if you look, it is showing me an error. Why is it so? Because if you see, that phone number is an integer and I am considering it like a string. Okay, so this thing will work in another case. I'll just show that to you. Just give me a minute. Let me first of all see all the customers, and I'll just do it like select star from customers where say uh, email ID is like John. Okay, email underscore ID like percentage John. Let me check it out now. So if you see, all four came in. Now let me just change this guy's name instead of email ID instead of JOHN. I'll just change this to this one, and I save it. Now second guy, second customer does not match the same spelling of JOHN. So if I run this query again, only 1, 3, and 4 will show up. Let me show that to you now. I'll just slip this and run it. See, 1, 3, and 4 has shown up. So this thing does work when the field is of type character. In case of phone number, this thing will not work. So this is, for that, there's another way of handling it. As I mentioned earlier, that SQL run checks it line by line, right? So let's first of all open this, see the entire table as such, and see that SQL would check line by line when I do select query. Uh, Now it checked on email and said that okay, this is a string, and within that it found the string called John, and then it gave me the results. What if I want to find a string within a phone number? Since phone number is of the type integer, this operator will not work. So what are the options that I have? The easiest option that I can do is that I convert this value from a type integer to to a string. That is pretty simple. This is a query that I would do. So I'll just simply copy this particular query, and then paste it and make modifications to it. So now this phone number is actually of type integer. I just need to convert it into the type string, which is actually defined as character varying. And how do I convert that? By calling a function that is called cast. Now if I run this query, you see the results. Yeah, there's no comma here. So instead of comma, I just have to write as. So you have to convert phone number to character varying. Let me just check it out. And now you see that it gave me the results 3, 4, and 2. Let me run this again and show you how it works. So 654 was not there in the customer ID, that is 1. Instead, it is there in customer 3, 4, and 2. That is 654 is present here, 654 is present here, and so here. So when it goes to each line, it converts this character or this cell, which is the type integer, into a string, and then compares this within that. Now, what does this mean? That's percentage in the beginning and percentage in the end. What it means is that if there's any word, like say this is a word, and then it has got John. So it says that whatever is there before that, consider it as such and just check John. So in this case, if had I done something like this, like John, then it would have taken this case, this condition. It will show this output. Had I done something like this, say John percentage, then it would have given me the results where John is present, and after that, everything else is there. That means in this case, a word that ends in John, and this case will give me the results for words that start with John. Okay. If I have to search for something in between, like say there's a word like this, with John in between, and then a word, and then it's followed by another characters. So in this case, anything that happens after John or anything that is present before John, just I don't care. Just John has to be there anywhere within the word. So in that case, I write it as percentage John percentage. Now let's check it out. Here, if you see, all the words they start with John, right? So if I write this function where it says that all the words that start with John, show me that, show me those rows, then this would work. But had I written it in this case, it would check for all the fields, all the cells where the word ends with John. So let me try this one first. Okay, let me remove this. So here you see nothing ends with John, and let's see what the value is. You see, no records came. However, if I say all the rows where email ID starts with John, then it would show these three. Okay, so this is the explanation of this percentage sign. Now let me show you the entire table once again. Here you see that there are 4 rows, and here you see that the customer IDs are in like random order 1, 3, 4, 2. What if I want to order these? How do I do that? It's pretty simple. After the where clause, I'll just have to give another command saying order by whatever field name I want to order it by. I can do it as customer ID. So do I order it by ascending order where it would show 1, 2, 3, 4, or do I want to order it by descending order where it would show 4, 3, 2, 1, right? 4, 3, 2, 1. Uh, I can always write that so if I want to order it by ascending order, I write it as ASC, and if I want to order it by descending order, I write it as DESC. Let me just check it out, show it to you how it works. Okay. Now if I do it, see it reordered it in 1, 2, 3, 4. In case I do it as descending order, then it would show 4, 3, 2, 1. That is how you order. What if you don't pass this value at all? If I don't pass it, then by default it will take it as ascending order. See, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now here I have not put any where clause. What if I want to put a filter and then I want to order it again? So let's try that out. Here I'll just search, copy this part, and I put a percentage in front of it, and then I copy. So right now, before I run, check that, let me run it and see that 1, 3, 4 it is showing in a particular order. Okay, this is majorly because 1, 3, 4 was showing in the same order. Let me check this one. How does it work? This one here you see 3, 4, 2. This is not in an order at all, isn't it? So what I would do here is, in this I'll take this as an example, and I put an order by clause in the end, order by customer ID. So as I mentioned earlier, this would by default take it as an ascending order. So this 2 would come first, that is John D would show first, followed by John Da, and then John Do. Let's check it out. See, John D, John Da, and then followed by John Do. So this is how you order it. There are additional operations that you can always do, like you can do aggregate functions, you can do distinct values, you can you can make numerical calculations, you can do a case condition, which is like an if-else condition, and all those things will be covered in our later videos, where we go for more complicated or advanced querying. So with all that said, now this query has become quite long, like it starts from here and it ends here. What's a good practice to write? So I personally always follow this approach where I say select, then I give the field names in one line, and then I write from, then I give the table name, and then I write where, and I write all the conditions inside that, and then I write order by. I would put it like this. This way, it is much more readable. So anything that you see in purple, these are actually operators, isn't it? So anything that is in purple should be in one line, and anything that occurs within that should be in another line. This is the way you typically write. Let me just run this once more. Uh, okay. Uh, I will just put this one because I want to explain you one another interesting thing here. So email ID like John, copy this and I paste it here and I search it. Okay, and here instead of the field names, I let me put it as star, and here I am putting a filter on the customer email where the email contains JOHN John. Now, what if I want to put a filter where it says that okay, it has to be John and it has to have 654 within it? How do you do that? Like if I say, if I run this query, I see that customer ID 2, 3, and 4 have 654 in it. If I run this query, this query, so remember 2, 3, 4 are there, and here 1, 3, 4 are there. I want to find an intersection. I want to say that okay, the email ID should contain JOH and John, and the phone number should contain 654. Then how do I do it? There's nothing great in that. It's very simple. Under the where condition, I write and then I put the other logic. That is this one. Phone number contains 654. Simple. If I run it here, see only 3 and 4 have come up. So as I mentioned earlier, that anything that is in purple or like a new operator should, I typically keep it in another line. So I would put it here and cast this thing as this. Another way of ordering it is like arranging it for better understanding would be that I put a space here such that I know that this part is within the where clause. This part is within the order by. This part is within from. And here this star is within select. So if I run it like this entire thing, and I will just simply end it with this thing with a semicolon, and I run it, you see it will again give me the same results. Let me put the field names instead of a star, and let me put that here, and I'll just run it again. So this has come up, isn't it? So this is a good way of writing it where you can easily figure out, okay, I'm selecting these things from this table, from this table, where these conditions, and finally I'm ordering it by this thing. So with that, the basic concepts of a read operations are covered. Now that we have covered creating and reading operations, the basics of them, let's go to the next one, which is update operation. Okay. In case of an update operation, let us first look at the details here, this table, and we'll take it as a reference to update. It is pretty easy here. Like in case of select function, you had this thing, right? Select field names, isn't it? Separated by a comma from table name, and then where you have the condition, isn't it? Update operation works in a very similar fashion. The syntax of writing an update operation is very similar to the syntax that you write for select operation. So the syntax goes like this, where you say update, then followed by the table name, update this table, set, here you have field one name equals to value 1, comma, field to name equals to value 2, comma, and so on. Okay. So you say specifically that for these fields, change the value from whatever it is right now to the new value. Okay. And you put so on. Now, in this case, it will change the values of all the rows. So you have to change. So you want to change the values of some specific rows. In that case, you have to give the same where condition. Since this is an update query where you are not reading the actual output, you don't need to order it by, because order by is specific to how you want to read it. Here you are not reading anything. You're just simply telling the server to go ahead and update the data. So this is how you write the query. Now let's check this out. I have done the select star from customers where it's showing all these details, right? Now I want to say that the spelling of John Da, that is customer ID 3, should be changed where J is capital and D is capital. Okay. So what do I do here? I say update the table name, that is customers. What table name has to be in double quotes, customers. Then I say set customer name, again this will be in double quotes, equals to John Da. This is the updated spelling. Then where, so I have to update this one row, right? Where customer underscore ID equals to 3. Now let me run it. Here you see it is saying that yes, it has been successfully run. Now let me check it out again. Now see, it has changed to John Da. This is how an update operation works. What if I want to change this name and this name together? I can do that also. I'll just simply copy this and then I say that like this guy, right? Customer ID 2. I say 2 and I make it as John D and comma. I separate it by comma. Email underscore ID equals to, okay, so this is John D. Okay, I'll update it to John underscore D at the rate someemail.com. Okay, now let me run it. Again, it has been successfully run. Now let me check. You see here, John D has become, J and D have become capital, and there's an underscore in between. So this is how you do an update query. Very, very similar to a select query. Nothing much. And if you want to put more filters, you can put more filters here, like and whatever additional condition you want to put, condition 2 and condition 3 and so on. Here there are like certain operators like and or. We'll be discussing that in our advanced levels of SQL querying. So we have covered create, read, and update queries. Now we just need to cover the last one, which is called delete. With that, we'll cover the entire spectrum of CRUD operations. Now, how do you delete a table? It is very, very similar to an update query where you say delete from table name where condition. Very simple. Remember in update we had update field names from this thing where. Here we are actually deleting the entire row, as simple as that. So that is why we don't have to give field names here. Let's see it in action. I want to delete this John Doe guy. Okay. So what I'll do is delete from customers where customer underscore ID equals to 4. Now let me run this. Now it has been deleted successfully. Now let me check the customer's table once again. Customer ID 4 is no longer there. So delete operation is extremely simple in this case. There is nothing big in that. I can put as many conditions as I want here, like where customer ID is equal to 4 and customer email like John, and whatever I can do, whatever I want to do. Delete operation is an extremely risky operation because once you lose the data, you have lost it forever. So I typically don't like delete operations. What I do instead is I keep another table called status, where status 1 means active, status 2 means inactive, and inactive typically means deleted. So because of this, there are like two advantages that I can do. One is that the future, whenever I want to see what happened in the past, say like there is, I had this shop in in Kolkata, right, which was closed. Let me just show that to you. uh, let's start from shops, okay, and order by shop underscore id, and run it. Here you see Kolkata was there and now it is closed. So instead of deleting this row, I just simply make it 2, which keeps all the records of the transactions that happened in Kolkata of the shop long time back, and those records are still with me. So tomorrow when I want to go back and check like how Kolkata performed, and if I want to reopen the shop, or I want to add another shop in Kolkata, I have all the data to take an informed decision on it. That is one aspect. That is a very big aspect, in fact. And the second aspect is that this shop ID is actually a foreign key to other tables, right? So if I delete, and then assume that there are records in the subsequent tables also, and I delete this shop ID here, then what would happen? Those data will not reference to a right place because that reference is no longer available in this table. Then things would go for a toss. Let me just check it. Let me just show you another one small example here. Let me select star from, say, product categories that are available in multiple places. This is one thing that I did not mention earlier, is that I can, instead of typing, I can also drag and drop. That way also it works. So let me just check it out, product categories. And here you see that I have product categories in shops 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And earlier I had 6 shops. Okay. Now assume that I am letting go of my Hyderabad shop, or say my Chennai shop. What would happen? So in this case, delete uh, delete from shops. Where is shops? Where shop ID. I can also drag the ID, the column name also. Where shop ID equals to, say, 4. I'm deleting my Chennai shop, and I run it. What would happen? It would say that I cannot delete it because it is already referenced to in another table, which is as a foreign key. So in that case, I have to do it. I have to first of all go to the other table and then delete it, and then come back here and delete here. I'll have to first of all let go of all the take care of all the references that have been pointing, all the references that are pointing to this table, say like from product categories it is pointing to shops table, and for that particular row I have to delete all the references, all the items which are referencing from here, and then only I can delete. So SQL, in fact every SQL engine, be it MySQL, MS SQL, or even PostgreSQL, they put these constraints. Okay, so you cannot accidentally delete. However, you can always delete information uh, which is not referenced to. But if I'm not able to delete, then what do I do? It is still active, but the shop is no longer there. So that is why I implement this thing called status, which says that this shop is no longer there with me. So with that, we have covered create, update, read, and delete operations. In the next videos, we'll be talking about more complicated operations. Now, before we end, I just wanted to show you one more thing here is that in shops, if I right click, I can drop it. Okay. Now, the next thing that comes is if I drop this table, then any table that is referencing to this table, I can drop them as well. So there is an option for drop cascade. Similarly, I can truncate. Truncate is here. I can truncate the table, that is remove all the data that are there in this table, and I can truncate cascade also. What it means is that if I am truncating all the data or removing all the data that are there in this table, then any data that is in any subsequent table which is pointing to this table, those data will also get deleted. So that is truncate cascade. So with that, we come to an end of this session. Thank you. Before we finish, let's talk about some tips and tricks that may come handy for you. First one I'll talk about is this the arrangement of columns, which is let me just show you. So let's start from say products. I pull it over. So dragging and dropping is one that you can always do to avoid any spelling errors or anything with the quotes and all. If I do this right now, if you then you see that all the columns are mentioned in the same order that are there here and the exact same name. If I want to change the order, okay, let me say that I'm actually pulling out certain columns out here or certain fields out here and say these are the four things that I want to see. I can always do that like this. Select the field name separated by commas from the particular table, and then I can put whatever where clause I want to put, isn't it? So let me not put the where clauses here right now. This is one. So I run it. Here you see the order in which I have mentioned, that is product ID, product name, price, and max discount allowed. That is the exact same order it shows up here. If I change that order, then what happens? Let me just pull this price to the end. Sorry, pull price to the end. That is after max discount allowed. Here you see that the order has changed. This is one way of arranging data when you're presenting it to someone. Second thing is, I don't want to show all the names as such as they are in the database. So I can always do it like this and say that uh, I can give aliases. So I call it as product ID as uh, PID. Let me call it that this way. And then I call it as P name. And this as max discount. And this I'll put it as price, as listed price. Then these field names will change. Look at this. Now, if you download this information, which you can do by clicking on this particular icon, it will download it as a CSV or a TXT file. And if I open this up, here you see that the aliases that I've given them, the names that I have given, that is the one that is showing up. So this is another trick that you can do. Further to it, there are additional things that you can do, like running a formula on any of the fields, and those things will be discussed later on in our subsequent videos. For now, thank you. Bye.